Thank you for joining us to ASHB's Smart Home Council meeting webinar. A link to download the presentation deck and recording will be emailed to all attendees in the coming days. You can also find a copy of the slide deck on our website. My name is Marta Kliptovska, and I'm also the Programs and Communications Manager at ASHB. I'll be emceeing the slides today. Please note that the webinar, as I mentioned, is being recorded and will be circulated for those registered. A quick look at today's agenda. We will do a call to order, welcome introductions about the Smart Home Council. We'll go over a few administrative items. We'll go over some research updates that ASHB is currently focusing on for this year. I believe everyone is here for our keynote today. Yoon Ho Choi from the Home Connectivity Alliance. His keynote will be on automated assisted living at home, transforming care with technology. And then lastly, we'll just go over some ASHB programs or podcast, white papers, journal, go over some new business if there are any. So a couple announcements and we will adjourn. With that, I will pass it over to Ken to go over the Smart Home Council.
Marta, thank you very much for opening the program. This is the quarterly meeting of the ASHB Smart Home Council. My name is Ken Wax. I have been in the industry now for many decades, running a management consulting practice in home and building systems. I'm also responsible as chair of the ISO and IEC committee responsible for developing world standards in this area that covers communication networks, device interfaces, cybersecurity, and applications. So I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone at this quarterly meeting of the Smart Home Council for ASHB. This council was established in 2004. The council initiates and reviews projects that relate to the connected home and multiple dwelling unit, covering technologies and applications. The council also examines industry opportunities that can accelerate the adoption of new technologies, consumer electronics, and broadband services within the growing connected home market. The Smart Home Council webinars and research topics explore industry shaping trends and forces. We also examine the use of technology to make connected homes more flexible, adaptable, and human-centric. And in this line, our keynote speaker will continue the thoughts in these areas with application to housing for people with special needs. Our minutes are recorded and are available at ashby.com/shc. The meeting minutes from May 22nd have been posted. And does anyone have any corrections or objections to the minutes? Hearing none, then we'll consider the minutes approved. So I'd like to extend special thanks to Charlie Dirk of Legrand for serving as Vice President of the Smart Home Council. We received news that he is stepping down to pursue other opportunities. So we're now accepting expressions of interest for the Vice Chair role in our quarterly meetings. Please contact us so you can reach Marta or me if you're interested. To get my contact data, you can go to my website, kenwax.com, kenwacs.com. I'll now ask Greg to update us on ASHB research.
Thanks, Ken. ASHB does the two major collaborative research projects every year, what we call them landmark research projects. This one is focused on the residential market. It started at the beginning of the year, and it's entitled Smart Home Trends and Technology Adoption. This project looks at a consumer survey of 500 individuals in Canada and the US, majority in the US, and as well as in-depth interviews, and does a deeper dive into certain topics in a smart home trends analysis report. So we've selected the steering committee of this project selected the smart home roadmap for sustainable technologies, redefining AI native in the smart homes and occupants, occupancy centric environmental comfort and wellness, and assisted living and aging in place were the topics selected for this year, as in addition to the survey. So this project also has a unique element to it of a smart home device adoption curve, similar to the Gartner hype cycle, but really tailored towards smart home devices. So it looks at gives a visual, data-driven snapshot of different devices and where they stand in terms of market adoption. And we're continuing this for from a year-to-year annual project. So this is the third year. So you'll be able to see engage the current market dynamics and emerging opportunities in the smart home space. So this is about a $60,000 research project that you see the funders on the screen there with Daikin, Lutron, Residio, NRC, and Train. If you want to get involved in this research, there's still opportunity to join. It's $5,000 to get the final research and all the research materials as they come available, or $10,000 to join the steering committee. And there's an additional webinars explaining the research findings as they're released. So anyone, if you see your logo on the screen and you want to know more information, feel free to reach out. Or if your company wants to join or learn more about this research project, you can contact admin@ashb.com or anyone from ASHB, and we'll reach out. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Greg. We now turn to our keynote presentation. It's my pleasure to introduce Yoon Ho Choi. He is the head of the Home Connectivity Alliance, or HCA. We will, Yoon, if you're comfortable with it, we'll take questions through your presentation, or would you like to have them at the end?
No, I think questions throughout is fine. And I hope that this is less of a presentation and more of a conversation. So I look forward to
very good. So we'll consider this as a learning workshop.
I hope so, yeah.
Yoon's title is Automated Assisted Living at Home, Transforming Care with Technology. Today's keynote in today's keynote, Yoon will share how connected appliances and HVAC systems can transform assisted living by enhancing comfort, safety, and independence through smart technology and industry collaboration. Yoon is the president and chairperson of the Home Connectivity Alliance, that's HCA. It's a member-driven organization of global brands dedicated to the development and promotion of safe and secure interoperability and energy savings across long-life appliances, HVAC systems, and televisions within the connected home ecosystem. As head of strategic alliances and partnerships at Samsung Electronics Digital Appliances Division, Yoon Ho leads investigations with the goal of expanding the hardware business to include services, commerce, and data businesses. He heads cross-industry partnerships globally and is intimately involved with strategic investments to help accelerate the digital transformation. Yoon Ho brings a unique set of expertise that includes running a startup, mobile telecommunications, and product strategy consulting. Yoon, the floor is yours.
Wow, thank you, Ken. And thank you, Ken, Greg, Marta, and of course, ASHB for this wonderful opportunity I've actually been looking forward to this webinar actually the whole week. I have done some of my homework and listened in on some of the ASHB previous webinars with the Smart Home Council, and both very exciting and very informative. So Ken, I hope I do it justice and provide a perspective from the HCA and from the industries and companies that represent HCA. So I can see that there's quite a few members of HCA also in the participants and list. So looking forward. I think this title that it gives an impression that this conversation is going to be a very technical conversation, but I think before we get started, if I kind of preface this and set the tone, the perspective I'd like to bring to Smart Home Council and to ASHB is, from an HCA perspective, from an appliance industry, HVAC industry perspective, what do we focus on, right? So within HCA, there's a few things we, very intensely focus on. There are other things we actually intentionally do not focus so heavy on, right? So, I think the reason I say that is there's a whole range, of course, with AI, with the proliferation of so many technologies and so many standards. There's a lot of good work that's done in the industry today and is being done today. Really today, I think is the big challenge is not if you can do it, but how you do it and when you do it. And I think this is important because technologically, most things actually could be done, right? It's a matter of piecing it together. And this is where I think HCA, in terms of this type of space, we focus on how do we piece it together? And then what are the values that each of the stakeholders then are able to share, right? So this is, I hope to bring a perspective like this. So Marta, if you would actually go to the next slide. Thank you. So let me perhaps start with this. The home as we know it is, it's ever changing. But I think it is safe to say that the home today is more than a shelter. The smart home topic has been around for, many years. But now I think it's safe to say that we are moving into kind of an era where the home is more than just a collection of devices that can, controlled remotely. It's more of an ecosystem with services, with devices, and a whole lot of data that is being generated within the home. What you do with that, I think, is, it's still uncharted in the sense that we have to do it safely. We have to do it so that the benefit is actually returned to the occupants. But it is, in fact, a very, very complex and wide ecosystem. And I think, certainly all the members in HCA, and I look through the members in ASHB as well, we are all part of it, right? But there's another sort of, this home infrastructure technology change as it's happening with the technology evolution. Another thing is very, very evident, especially in many of the developed worlds. US for sure, where I am in South Korea, for example, is even more acute, right? So, and that is a very strong, very evident demographic change where there's a whole, an explosion of an aging population. And this is the fastest growing population by far. Certainly in the US, South Korea, China, Japan, and many, of course, countries in Europe, right? So this is it's a whole new set of challenges and also opportunities. So this is something that is very, very dramatic. As you can see here, the population even in Europe, in US, between 2020 and 24, the growth of the age 65 and older grew much faster than children, right? So this is kind of something that's it's a very national problem. It's a new need that needs to get addressed. And so when you think about the economy, when you think about the labor force, there's many challenges and things to tackle.
I assume this traces its origins back to the post-World War II baby boom, and we're seeing the baby boomers now reaching 65 and beyond.
That's right. That is one strong contribution. But the other one, Ken, is that in many countries, people just aren't having that many babies, right? That's another huge change as well. And so, yeah, I think there are things that, we are also getting older. I'm getting older, right? So this is something that's, coming up ahead. And I think about and how can we actually use technology that we build, we, create to actually help myself and help ourselves, have a better life at home, right? So this is a very immediate problem. At the same time, if I think about what options are actually available, like really available, that's, accessible today to me, there's a whole set of challenges I have to do to kind of piece everything together. And everybody on this call, we're in the industry, right? So if we find that challenging, the average person, is going to give up right away, right? So this demographic change, this, ecosystem in the home is changing. And then, of course, with this, there's other expectations right? So, we live with technology, we grew up with technology, this convenience, safety, and comfort is, we have very little tolerance for not having that, right? So, I think this will continue on. So when we think of home, when we think of, the aging population, it's very different than how we used to define it. And I think you have to kind of look at it this way. And then in the subsequent slides, I'll kind of get to why this is important to be able to actually understand this demographic and this change as a market, rather than just a stat or just the way they've defined it, let's say even 10, 20 years ago. It's actually very different. So you have to understanding and defining this clearly is one of the most important things. If you would go to the next slide, Marta. Yeah. So there are certain needs that technology can address, right? And so if you, kind of take the effort and build yourself a little ecosystem, things like, of course, remote monitoring of what you do in your home, in your daily patterns, of course, automated comfort and things that learn and adjust itself. And then, of course, alerts for anomalies, right? So, a fall detection versus there's no movement in the home or something's out of pattern. These are all actually very possible. And there are certainly many platforms that actually can do this. And then, of course, integrating with extended services, including emergency services. These are all technologies that are available today. But if you would ask any, you know, anyone who's aged or in that demographic, are these things available to you, and is it easily accessible? I think more times than not, you would get an answer that is saying they don't have it, or it's too complex, or oftentimes it's too intrusive, and they are concerned about privacy, right? So while these are available, it's certainly not where it could be. And I think as an industry, there's a great opportunity for us to kind of tackle this with a new perspective. So I'm saying that things are available, not perfect, lots of room for improvement, right? If you would go to the next slide, Marta. Yeah. I mean, these are some of the things from SmartThings, which is part of Samsung, but with the SmartThings app and some sensors and some devices, for example, I can set it up so I can know when my mother has returned back, from her walk back to the home. If there's anything that's, happening within the home, whether it's sound detection or fall detection or this type of thing, there are devices that we can actually mobilize today to go check out what's happening, such as a robot vacuum cleaner, right? So these are all technically possible. And because I do a lot of these demos at CES and elsewhere, I use it at home, right? But that's me taking kind of the extra effort to set it up, and it is still very fragile, right? If you would go to the next slide, Marta. Yeah. Even small things like, for example, when the air quality in the room or the house could be better, using the lights to kind of alert me, and the lights color changing to tell me that I think you should circulate the air or refresh the air, and of course leaving things behind. So the reason I'm and of course a whole spectrum of these use cases that are possible from many of the the OEMs and members of HCA and ASHB. We know that these are possible, but I think the question is, so if it's possible, then why isn't it more prevalent and everywhere, right? Why are these still out of reach for most people unless they have their children or somebody or spouse or somebody who's really well versed in this? Why is that so out of reach for many? I think there's a few reasons, and I'll start to kind of get into what I think those are and how we might be able to kind of tackle them. Okay. If you would go to the next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, of course, HCA being an organization focused on appliances and HVAC, I bring this point of view, but not only because we are in the industry, but HVAC and appliances are part of the home and it's been part of the home way before even smart home was a word, right? So these have been around, some of them over 100 years, right? So these are central sort of pieces to the home. They are always on in the sense that they are, you bring a refrigerator home, you plug it in, you are not going to unplug that or turn off power until you either move or get a new fridge, basically, right? So, and they are part of the daily routines. And these have a sensing capability. So, there's a pattern that builds up. Although our days may feel very different from season to season and days to days, there is certainly a pattern that builds up. And this opportunity to use this non-intrusive data to actually, in a way that's private, in a way that's non-intrusive, to be able to use these as sensor data to the wellness of the occupant in the home, right? So if a person is, wakes up and there's a pattern they go through, if the pattern is off cycle, and there's other, triggers that say, well, this person has not left the home, but there's, the fridge door has not opened until like 10 a.m., right? Those things become sort of early escalating sensing capabilities that become, inputs to many services, including care services and so on, right? And so we look at our appliances, of course, as things to preserve food, wash clothes, and all of that. But on top of that, because we know that people use these devices on a regular basis in almost a very predictable pattern, now we are starting to heavy investigate how can we leverage this data to provide additional benefits through partnership with other services. In fact, other industries, right? So that this data that comes from here is not just, store somewhere or it's just kind of wasted, but we use this to, in fact, enhance the occupants, experience and safety and money savings, really. So we want to put this to use to really provide additional benefits. And I think the appliance and HVAC industry is really squarely looking at this from that perspective, because there is also so much data that comes out, right? So this is fairly predictable, but I can say with certainty that the industry is, you will see a solid movement this way, where these devices then act as sensors to do more, to provide additional benefits beyond its original, first job capability.
So, Yoon Ho, are you suggesting, for example, that you could track how often the refrigerator was opened, and if, for example, you expect a person to be at home during the day and the refrigerator was not opened all day, you would be concerned?
That could be an escalating, certainly one escalating, sensing or pattern detection. And as I mentioned before, Ken, it's like, if you combine that with the door sensor, so you know that the front door or the entry to the house has not been open, and because they may have gone out for breakfast, right? But if that's not happened, if the water dispenser has not been, pushed, and it's 10 or 11 a.m., as a caregiver, as a child to that parent, it starts an escalating notification that says you should look into this, right? And then continue. It's a very simple but very effective one because it's so predictable in terms of the pattern. Yeah. Okay. Moving to the next slide, Marta. Thank you. Yeah. Some of the current landscape, as I mentioned before, there's many solutions. And there's also very good work done from, for example, from CSA and Matter. They're doing a massive effort to help make interoperability between multiple industries and devices, very easy. There's a more B2B interoperability play within HCA. But however you look at it, it's still very siloed, And even with all of that effort, you know, you still have to piece things together. And it's a real challenge. There are lots of actually, you know, economic business reasons why I think it is that way. And it's not going to be easy to resolve. However, you know, it is where we need to go, because if that demographic change happens, the home is this way and evolving. If we don't do this, the output or the outcome is it's very terrible, right? So this is the challenge we have. UX and setting up is also not easy, right? If I'm very familiar with one system, maybe all of the products from that system or platform, I would get familiar with. The minute I switch to something else, because not one company makes all of them, right? So when I do that, it's also a big problem. I think JD Powers just recently did an you know, an article and a research that shows essentially the more connected devices are, the more problems it has, and overall, you know, people thought it was complex and had found it challenging. Not only the older people, but even the, you know, Gen Y and Gen Z, right? Even the younger people, I think, um, felt that it was challenging. I think their challenge was that they had a higher level of expectation from an experience perspective. But it still goes to show that even with all of this evolution, the problem still remains, right? This last bullet point on the left is something that I think is one of the biggest hurdles of making this actually, you know, why it doesn't happen in a way that it should, is that the lack of business models, in particularly around data, I think is still very weak in the industry. People are still trying to figure that out. But the business motivations are not as clear, and therefore the companies driving these, it's kind of an on-off situation, or it's very, you know, low scale effort, right? And so there's not a heavy push to actually make that happen. I often find that one of the largest and the, you know, the central challenges in the end, you know, all of ASHB, HCA, all of these organizations are nonprofit. All of the members are for profit, and there has to be an outcome that's meaningful, right? And I think that's one of the challenges of this market. So if you ask anyone in the industry, you know, I always ask, I say, you know, what is your concept of a successful smart home model, right? It could be, you know, selling more products, but not really uh, you know, the smart home element, really. It's you're using it to sell more product, which is, of course, a you know, a stable model, but I think there could be more. So those are things that at HCA we discuss and try to kind of dig into to see, you know, how some of those things can be resolved. Yeah. If you go to the next slide, Marta, thank you. Yeah. So when we take this, and so HCA members, we look at this and say, okay, in order to solve this, you know, aging need, you know, how to serve that need, how to transform assisted living. You know, the technological piece, as I mentioned, there's many ways and many paths and many solutions for us to, you know, to access. But who are the actual stakeholders and the partners that need to actually make that work? So we looked across the ecosystem of the home and really investigated who is in this ecosystem and which industries, some of them completely, different from our industry, whether it's a finance industry, whether it's a service industry, and we investigate how can we improve their business by leveraging our data, and how can their services then therefore benefit the consumer in a positive way, whether it's lowered, service costs, better predictability, better risk management, so on and so on, right? So as part of HCA, we are very fortunate to have some of the insurance industry's leaders, particularly leaders who are very, very advanced in technology and data processing, have joined HCA to investigate some of this potential opportunities together. And they bring a completely different point of view, and really is looking at the home and what can we do to prevent risk, right? And we call it kind of connect to protect. How can we leverage all of this to help consumers both save money, headache of, a situation happening. And this is, if you can imagine the whole home, insurance industry, it starts with the home, but there's, of course, health, and eventually even life, right? So there's a whole spectrum of insurances that are part of the home ecosystem, that are part of that assisted living situation, where many pieces then can be brought together to improve and provide future benefits, right? Home security is, of course, another one, right? So home security, and by using these, I mean, nobody wants to have, there's a lot of cameras facing outside, but nobody wants to have a camera that's facing inside. The home security companies are expanding their portfolio of business to include other things, like aging in place, right? Or monitoring of particular demographics that may need services, but also does not want something listening in all the time, or a camera facing me and tracking me. It's just too intrusive to my privacy, right? Of course, a whole host of care services, and the care services, there's many spectrums, right? So moving the hospital bed into your home, it could be one end of the spectrum. Another one is just people checking in to make sure that the residents are doing well, right? So there's a large spectrum of services, and by leveraging some of this data from the appliances and HVAC, it informs these service caretakers to so that they can do their job better, right? And so therefore, there's a benefit for everybody. One thing for certain is that when we work and look across cross-industry partnerships and collaboration, this common shared vision of a consumer benefit, providing that as a core principle, is sort of our guiding light, right? So what we don't want to do is take our data and just kind of sell it to data brokers, or that's a path that we don't take. But I think when we have the consumer benefit at the core of it, a lot of these start to make sense. And I think one thing you would also start to realize is home appliances and HVAC is a long-term business, right? So when we are in your home, these devices, they are there for decades. Same goes with many of these services, right? So we both think long-term, and there's natural sort of synergies there on how to approach the problem so that we can provide the maximum benefit. Yeah. Marta, if you go to the next slide. Am I okay on time, Marta? I hope I'm not going too much into your
No,
other meetings. Yeah.
you're good, Yoon Ho. You're good.
Okay.
Keep going. Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I'm almost at the end here. So, yeah, and I think it's really then bringing it back into, so when we do all of this, the various different business models and revenue streams, those are independently for each of the companies to think about. But as a general sort of industry model, we can talk about what specifications, what are the data models that are needed to enable some of this. And then when we come together as an industry and the appliance industry comes together to provide this, it makes a whole lot more sense to our partner and our cross-industry, collaborators, right? So this is where I think we look at and say, okay, when we create a data model like this, when we create an API like this, how can those serve, as a lead generating thing? How can it serve as a recurring sort of relationship? Can some of that be a subscription? Should it be, these are the type of investigations and conversation we do as an industry. Now, the execution of that is all, of course, by design separate, and everybody, that's everyone's confidential sort of business. But as an industry, in order to stimulate this, in order to make this actually meaningful for the cross-industry partner, that's, I think, where the organization can think together. And that has been proven to been very beneficial for us. I think there are other, continents, for example, Europe, with a lot of the regulations or legislations that's, starting to, new ones that are coming up. There are certainly ones that definitely are worth looking at. For example, the EU Data Act, sorry. That is something that is very relevant in some of the topic that I'm talking about. Okay. If you would go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So ultimately, for this assisted living at home, without going into the solutions or without going into like this technology or that technology, really the focus is around the stakeholders and the values everybody extracts from this engagement, right? So of course, with the ASHB members and HCA members, there's many areas where we can kind of join to create these new sort of benefits for consumers, for the user themselves, for the caretakers and families, and then of course, for us, for the industry. How do we actually leverage this? I think this is the conversation that oftentimes is missing. I actually initially had a deck built out that was just full of like technology, solutions and talk, but it's stuff you already know, right? And it would be one point of view, but I think this conversation about creating these new interesting models where there's actual value generated is, I think, something that I'd like to bring to ASHB and for this audience to have a conversation. Yeah. If you would go to the last slide. Yeah. And Ken, these are some topics I thought might be worth continuing on in future conversations. But it's the
Well, I'm
yeah.
going to be talking about the opportunity for Smart Home Council specialty white paper. These could be the basis for those, but of course, you've sort of appointed yourself as lead, which is great. So I'll address that in a few minutes.
All right. Yes, and so that brings me to the end of my webinar, and I hope that it was able to provide a slightly different perspective rather than just the lot of like the technical sort of possibilities. I think the technical possibilities are wide and plentiful, and so I hope this was meaningful and was beneficial for the audience. And again, Ken, Greg, Marta, thank you very much for the opportunity.
So now's the opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask our speaker questions. You have the expert in front of you. So what questions would you like to pose?
So Ken, this is Dave Kaufman. I raised my hand. I'm not sure you're seeing that, but I just got maybe a comment.
Thank you for alerting me. I see your hand. Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Sometimes the UIs on these things are a little weird. They get buried. But thank you so much for coming in and doing this. I just wanted to make kind of a comment, and then also maybe you can give me your thoughts on this. So I'm agreeing with you that the fragmentation in the market, especially a smart home, for the things you've talked about, it's going to take a village to kind of pull it all together, right, in some way. And I also agree that it's going to be services led, right? Services are the way to potentially come in and potentially defrag the industry, and that also those service leaders, whoever are offering those services, need to recognize that it's going to require profit sharing, right? It's not a winner take all. It's going to be, how can we work together to deliver, to your point, the win-win-win, right? The win for the industry, the win for the consumer, the win for the individual services leader, those kinds of things. And as an example, I'll just give you guys an example of what I'm talking about, right? When you think about, was talking about aging in place, as a potential service, and there's other different kinds of services that are out there, but we do this in the energy industry today, meaning we do this in the industry with demand response. As you guys know, that's in days like today, in Arizona, where it's going to be 111 or 112 degrees outside, they're trying to reduce energy wherever they can, the utilities are, so they don't have to, go buy, high expensive energy or fire up peaker plants or those kinds of things. So they're looking for consumers to reduce energy. We're a part of that. We do that, but we share. We know that it's not just our thermostats. Resideo's Honeywell Home, for those of you that don't know, those are our thermostats and the brand we go to market under. It's our thermostats, it's Nest thermostats, it's Trane thermostats, it's other thermostats that we then communicate to, Yuno's point, we communicate them with multiple different technologies, and HCA is one of them, right? We use HCA as one of the technologies that we talk to them, and whatever energy that thermostat reduces, that thermostat company gets money, gets paid for that, for being part of the program. So it gets back to, we've got to come up with these new business models that are services led, and then also get everyone recognizing that we got to work together, and we all win together, and you may not get all the pie, but you're going to get a piece of the pie, right? And now you can go and you can take advantage of maybe not just doing the thermostat function, but also be a part of demand response.
Dave, I wanted to clarify, did you say that you've got an arrangement with the utility that you, the thermostat maker, gets a cut of the DR savings as opposed to the customer?
Yeah, no, that's great, Ken. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, so we as an energy aggregator, we work with the largest utilities in the U.S. and we.
Oh, you're the energy aggregator. You're the intermediary between the utility and the customer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. In addition to being a thermostat provider, we're also the energy aggregator. So we'll work with big, like out here in Arizona, it's APS, right? We'll go work with APS, and APS says, hey, we want people to bid into this event that's going to happen, and how much load will you reduce, Resideo? We'll say, oh, we're going to reduce so many, megawatts or whatever of energy. And they say, okay, no problem. We'll pay you for that. So then we have to go out and then, get thermostats or get other areas of energy reduction that now we can, have happen during that event, and then prove, to the utility that it did happen. And then it's profit sharing.
I want to make an observation. You've got so much valuable content in this 5 minutes you just discussed. It's worthy of a webinar for a future HSC meeting.
Okay, great, Ken. Yeah, thanks for recruiting me. But yeah, so anyway, I didn't mean to do that. I just wanted to pile on to what you know saying. And HCA is if you guys are interested, it actually leans heavily into that. The way they've structured HCA, the way HCA has been designed in terms of its technology and its commercial friendliness in terms of its API and cloud to cloud API for B2B opportunities. I just wanted to encourage folks to look into that too. I'm giving you a commercial for HCA right now.
Well, you
Thank
sort
you.
of give us an example that there is value in cooperation, and everyone's a winner there.
That's right. Exactly, Ken. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to say that it's good. My thoughts are, and I'm piling on what just said, is that if this can be services led, and the people that are the big service providers can recognize that it's not a winner take all game, it's a profit sharing game, and that if you want to now bring it all together, you got to come up with the business motivations, and that's his point. Here's the business motivations to have the individual device folks on this call, other folks in the industry, to come be a part of that. Because now they can, in addition to doing their function, whether it's a refrigerator or a thermostat or a dishwasher or whatever it is, can now be part of something else that delivers value from that device, but also for the industry and the consumer.
So do we have any further questions for Yoon about HCA, about the approach for automated assisted living? By the way, the term automated assisted living is being used in specifying ISO and IEC world standards. So you'll be hearing more of that phrase, AAL. Any other questions?
Ken, this is Yoon Ho. One thing I would like to maybe perhaps invite in our attendees here, we do have some attendees from the actual insurance industry. So I don't want to surprise them, but hearing from them, maybe their perspective on this conversation might also be valuable. So Norman, I don't know if you would be I know you're the right person for it, but if you are able to make any comment.
Sure, Yoon Ho, I appreciate that. As I sat here,
So Yoon's calling you up from the audience. So take the bow.
I'm not surprised. We have a great relationship with Yoon Ho and a tremendous amount of respect for what he has to say. And from an insurance perspective, I'm not sure if I'm the only one here, but I do represent one of the largest insurance companies in the world, and we are keenly interested in the opportunity to bring insurance into loss mitigation capabilities, especially around technology. And
so you are from an insurance company?
Yes, it's a large, the largest reinsurance company in the world, and our relationship is with primary insurance carriers. We bring technology and solutions to these primary insurance carriers along with insurance capabilities, and we are keenly interested in the ability and the use of technology to help mitigate risk. When we look at the consumer and the risks that they're up against, specifically water, as an example, they're challenged every day with trying to keep water losses inside the homes. So we look at technology and partnering with companies that bring technology into homes to help mitigate that risk or lower that risk so that everybody wins. The insurance company wins because we see less loss. The appliance manufacturer or the technology manufacturer wins because consumers are purchasing more of those devices to help mitigate that loss. And then the consumer wins because they're left without the losses inside their homes. So this is a very, very important topic for us in the insurance industry. And I think that the points that Yoon Ho brought up were spot on right. Utilizing technology and bringing the insurance industry as part of that. And I'm not sure who it was from Residio that was speaking earlier, but talked about it's not a winner take all, and that's the way the insurance industry looks at it too.
Thank you very much, Norm. Any other questions? Well, you stimulated some excellent discussions. I could talk for quite a bit, sharing experiences in this area and developing standards, and actually dealing with my own insurance company about benefits of add-ons. So any final comments, Yoon, or any final questions from
No,
anyone?
I think Ken, again, thank you and it's an honor to be here. I hope that this is the beginning of many conversations and you would invite us back for other webinars. There are many great leaders with great points of views within HCA that would bring a totally different point of view. So I look forward to seeing you again. And thank you again for the opportunity.
Yoon, thank you very much. We now turn to Marta. Would you like to discuss ASHB podcasts?
Yes, thanks, Ken. I just wanted to take a quick moment to highlight the ASHB Smarter Homes and Buildings podcast, where industry leaders and innovators share practical insights on the technology shaping smarter living spaces. If you're interested in being a guest or a host on an episode, we are always looking for subject matter experts. So please do reach out to us. You can reach out to us at admin@ashb.com. You can also contact Ken or Greg, any one of us here on the call. The podcasts are extremely flexible in how we do them in terms of how much time we spend on it, the platforms that we use to record it, and also the promotion of it, as well as whether you participate as a guest or a host. And we could, of course, always look for a guest or a host for you if you are interested, or you could bring anyone on your end. Please do reach out. We could always set up a call and I can walk you through what is involved in this. And like I said, it is extremely flexible in how we do these. So very easy to do, very easy to record. And of course, we'll work with you to promote the episode. Our actual latest episode is with Roy Spencer, and he explains how smart tech like Basement Defender prevents costly water damage. And then also Robert Soller shared how circadian lighting supports better sleep, mood, and performance. You can also access recently recorded episodes by visiting our website, ashb.com/podcast.
So, Marta, how many podcasts has ASHB recorded?
I think we are approaching our mid-20s at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. So we hope to do one per month. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes we do more, sometimes we do less, but we're averaging approximately 10 per year at this point.
Well, thank you very much. I was asked by ASHB to do one of the early podcasts, so I'm glad to hear the process is continuing.
It is, yeah.
I'd like to talk for a moment about publications. ASHB is primarily a source of information for its members and for the general public. The Smart Home and Smart Building Councils produce original white papers. This is member driven, so it's up to you, those of you who are listening, to have your imagination stimulated for white papers, just as Yoon volunteered to do white papers. Little nudge there, Yoon. But ASHB will gladly help assemble a small team to work with you on white papers and to review the white papers. Typically, an ASHB white paper is around 10 pages or so. If the topic warrants more materials, we might divide it up into a series on a topic where we might have an introductory paper, a technical paper, a marketing paper, etc. So they're all available in the library. Now, complementary to the original white papers we developed, ASHB has a program that's been in place for about 20 years to search the publication world of journals and trade association publications and determine which publications are relevant for ASHB members, meaning the publication deals with technology or marketing in homes or building space. We vet each paper carefully. We produce a sheet explaining the topics in the paper with a number of keywords so you can search for a particular topic. and we determine if the paper is appropriate for our ASHB members. We have reviewed literally thousands of papers. For the first 3 years that we put a paper that's passed muster into the library, it's available only to ASHB members. After about, I think it's 3 years, then we make it available to the general public. In consideration of the time that ASHB members put into reviewing these papers and filling out the publication review form, we offer you a $25 credit towards ASHB services, and also $25 cash reimbursement as a token of thanks for your time. We usually have a good supply of papers, and ideally we'd like to see each ASHB member volunteer to read a few papers. The average a reviewer will do 5 papers a year maybe, and it really doesn't take a long time, and you get to read materials you may not have had time to read previously. So that's under the domain of the Publication Review Committee of ASHB. I also wanted to mention another opportunity. If you have a more general topic than a white paper specific to one of the councils, you can write a journal article. ASHB maintains a journal. It's actually been around as long as ASHB and its predecessor CABA have been around. It had different names. It used to be called the CABA Quarterly, then a glossy magazine called iHomes and Buildings. Now that publications are moving online, it's been rebranded as ASHB Journal. I'm pleased to say that I've been writing for ASHB Journal and its predecessors since I think it was 1992 was my first article that I wrote. So it's one of the things that I just do a few times a year for ASHB, and Marta and company are very helpful in preparing it for posting, and keep a sharp eye out for typos and such, and it's been a very good relationship. So please think about the white papers, about reviewing articles for the Publications Review Committee, and writing an original article for the ASHB Journal. We now turn to new business. It's your opportunity to suggest keynote ideas, white paper ideas, research projects. You know, one of the major undertakings in ASHB, as Greg explained, was a research project tailored to the needs of the funders of the research. So if anyone has any ideas in any of these topics or agenda items, please let me know, let Marta know, and we will adapt. So Marta will now tell you about ASHB involvement in various trade activities in our industry.
Thanks, Ken. Just real quickly, coming up for events, we have the CEDIA Expo, of course, September 3rd to the 6th in Denver. We will be there. We'll have a booth there as well. And we will be hosting our board meeting at CEDIA. So we look forward to that and seeing some of our board members there. Smart Spaces by Parks Associates, September 16th to 17th in Dallas. And Apex, American Property Exhibition, September 17th to the 19th in Miami. And that is a residential and commercial event. So hope to see everyone there.
So thank you very much, Marta. We're approaching the end of the meeting. Marta is very efficient and has actually already contacted me about setting our next meeting in November. When it's finalized, she'll announce the date and give you the opportunity to sign up for our next meeting. So it's your final opportunity to make any comments or any suggestions for the Smart Home Council at ASHB. I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank Yoon Ho for an excellent presentation, and all those who participated and commented. Appreciate, makes the meeting very lively and worthwhile. So
Thanks so
Marta,
much, Ken.
Greg, thank you all, and we are reaching adjournment.
We'll see you in November.
Thank you.
Thank you.